You wanna fight, bro?
Yeah, the Fight Bros podcast.
Two, one. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the first official podcast of the Fight Bros podcast. It's a great day, August 11th. I'm Marcus Burks, and this is Albert Walters.
Hey.
Me and Albert's been talking about doing this for, 2 or 3 years now?
Yeah, we've just been talking about doing it. Then, what was it? About a month ago, we said, let's just commit, man. Let's just do it. So we did. We got some equipment, did some research, and here we are. We're super excited to bring you guys just a fun little podcast.
Oh yeah, we're just UFC fanatics. We've been wanting to do this. We love talking UFC. We feel like enough people don't talk about it. UFC, ESPN usually covers a little segments about UFC, not a whole lot. So we just like to have good conversation on here and talk about fights. We're not really holding ourselves just to talk about UFC. We'll talk about all things MMA. One championship. We'll talk Bellator. We'll talk boxing.
Oh yeah, and we're also gonna have some pretty good stories too.
Bare knuckle boxing.
Oh yeah. We have a local TOC, Titans of the Cage, out of Southwest Virginia, Wytheville, and we also have the Rough and Rowdy. That's out of Bluefield, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's just a couple guys. That's not full bare knuckle, is it? No, I didn't think so. But it's just, I don't really think they're picky on weight divisions. They just let people go at it, and we're gonna try to cover all of that. We want to get some of the local fighters out as guests on the show, and we actually already have our first few guests lined up. We're not gonna spoil those people, so they'll be a surprise when they come on the show. But no, we eventually would love to get some of the fighters out to talk about what it's like in the ring and out of the ring training, what it's like with work, where they want to bring it, So we definitely want to get some fighters and just some guests. So if anybody out there wants to be on a podcast, we definitely have a mic and a chair for you, and we're accepting of pretty much everybody.
And I'd like to thank my girlfriend Mary Thomas for making our very cool logo of me and Albert cartooned. We really appreciate that. And It's an awesome logo.
Oh yeah, great logo. We were actually working on our little entrance audio a few times, weren't we? So it's goofy, but that's just what we are. We like to have a little fun. So if it's cheesy, then sorry.
Oh yeah, but let's jump right into it. Let's start talking about some fights. So we're talking Fight Night 156.
Last night,
and I'm very fired up about this, man.
Fired up good or fired up bad?
Fired up bad.
Oh, you're pissed?
We just watched a robbery happen on live TV. This man, they just stole from Mike Perry on live TV.
Oh yeah.
Mike Perry was robbed, man. He should have received this victory for this fight. He lost by split decision. I don't agree with the split decision. I think it should have been unanimous Mike Perry. I just want to break down the statistics of this fight. Mike Perry landed 96 strikes. Vincent Luque landed 70 strikes. Mike Perry outstruck him by 25 strikes.
And they both threw, about 180 strikes total?
A little over, yeah.
Yeah.
Right there.
Somewhere around that area. Oh, yeah.
And Mike Perry had the control on his side, too. He controlled for, in the clinch and on the ground for 3 minutes and 23 seconds. Vincent Luque had no control time. And Mike Perry received one takedown, and he kept the pressure the whole fight. Vincent Luque's back was against the cage the whole fight. Mike Perry was bringing the pressure. I do not agree with this decision. I believe this decision was made based off damage. Mike Perry broke his nose, really, really nasty injury.
Oh, ugly. If you all have a chance to look up Fight Night 156, Mike Perry's nose. It's pretty awful looking.
Oh, I think that's the worst broken nose I've ever seen. His nose it's crooked, but it was crushed in.
Oh too. Yeah, it's flattened out. He looks like the villain from Harry Potter with that flat nose pressed against his face. So,
But I mean, this was
he
a
still
great,
should have won. Looking at the statistics, because that's for those of you who do not know, when a fight goes all the way to decision and it's not finished by a knockout, a TKO, or a submission, or medical reason, whatever. If it's not finished early, it goes to decision, and when it goes to decision, the decision is based off of the statistics amongst the two fighters. How many major hits was landed, the amount of control, how many just hits were landed in general, how many strikes, then how many strikes were thrown. Somebody might get 50 strikes, but if they threw 1,000 strikes, it's kind of sloppy.
Yeah.
So, and all of it is based off of statistics, and that's why we're here talking about the amount of control that Mike Perry had. And we're talking about the amount of strikes landed. And who was it that said it was the world?
It was like it's something called a global fight card. This company that they score fights and then post the fights later on. They post the actual scoring based off the strikes and stuff, and they had Mike Perry winning.
Yeah.
I think they had him
even
winning.
Did Joe Rogan say he thought Mike Perry should win?
I don't know what Rogan said yet. I think that was for
What
something
did-
else.
That was for something else we were talking about. What did Dana White say about it?
He hasn't commented on it yet. But I mean, he comments about a lot of other fights if they was bad or not. So I feel like he should comment and say something about this fight, because I just feel like it was pure robbery.
Oh yeah.
It did receive Fight of the Night, so I mean, at least they rewarded Mike Perry an extra $50,000. But that $50,000 could go to his surgery for his nose.
Does the UFC cover that, like in-ring damages?
I ain't sure.
Someone was talking about how they don't know if they were a fighter. They said they don't know if they get health coverage for in-ring damages.
I don't think they do, because a lot of fighters complain about stuff like that.
Yeah.
And,
I think you're right.
I mean, they obviously don't get paid enough to do what they do.
No. They don't get paid a good living wage. Yeah. No. It's not like boxing. Boxing, you make millions.
Oh yeah.
But that's something, the UFC's actually had a lot of pressure from fighters and from fans about how they bring in many hundreds of millions of dollars, but their fighters are walking away from a pay-per-view fight. Depending on your name and how big the fight was, you might get $1 million, $2 million, but
depending on pay-per-view buys.
Depending on pay-per-view buys and depending on your sponsors, but your sponsors are kind of private.
Well,
this is just coming straight from the UFC. You might only get a couple million. While if you went over to boxing, some people are getting 10, 20 million for one fight.
Yeah.
So there's been a lot of pressure on the UFC to start investing more and obviously in health coverage. Someone gets hurt in the ring in a fight, they should probably get that covered. I mean, I hope Mike Perry does not have to pay for his nose replacement.
I hope he doesn't either. I think the least they could do, because he was obviously robbed, and a lot of other people thought that too. Like a lot of UFC fighters voiced on Twitter last night that they think he was robbed.
Oh yeah, this was a controversial call. I mean, if you liked Luque, then of course you're gonna say you're glad he won. Yeah. But really, if you look at the statistics, then he should not have won that fight last night.
I believe this is one of the situations in which UFC should pay for the damages that Perry has. I think he's still in the hospital right now. I know he got surgery immediately this morning.
They said it was a successful surgery.
Yeah, it was a successful surgery.
Yeah. Man, he should have just got a new nose.
Yeah, I mean, he might have.
Yeah,
depending on... I just feel like the circumstances that went down, they should pay for this.
Yeah.
But let's get right into another great fight last night. Volkan Ozdemir versus Ilir Latifi. Volkan Ozdemir was coming off a 3-fight losing streak.
Yeah.
And I mean, this is vintage Volkan Ozdemir right here. Second round TKO over a tough Ilir Latifi.
Oh yeah, I mean, Latifi is a great fighter, and if you look at the highlights, or you want to watch the whole round again, you just see Latifi is getting tagged the entire time. He's getting tagged. He's getting stunned. Ozdemir, he is having great pressure on Latifi.
Yeah, and there was actually a time in the fight, I think it was early, kind of late, middle second round. Latifi looked up at the clock after he got rocked a couple of times. I mean, he did not want to be in there
even the
anymore.
announcer said, "Oh man, he does not want to be in there."
He didn't. I mean, you could tell by then he was mentally defeated. He was done. And then Ozdemir just ended it.
Yeah,
with a very good. That was a very good fight for Ozdemir.
it was a good fair fight. What do you think's next for Ozdemir?
He called out Dominic Reyes, which Dominic Reyes was Ozdemir's last fight. It ended in a split decision, I believe. Ozdemir believes he won.
Everybody believes
it was a very close fight. I remember watching it. I thought it was very evenly matched.
Was that a pay-per-view?
No, it was a fight night.
Okay.
I can't remember which fight night, but I believe they should run that rematch back because I don't think Ozdemir is getting John Jones anytime soon.
No, he doesn't deserve John Jones anytime. I mean, he's got the size, but that's it.
Because it was just recently announced that Johnny Walker versus Corey Anderson was made official for UFC 244. So I obviously think that's what the winner of that is going to face John Jones.
Yeah, unless we're looking at the winner of DC versus Stipe. So, I mean,
if DC wins and calls John Jones out, or the UFC offer them buco money to do the third fight, that's obviously what needs to happen.
Yeah. So I mean, I think out of Johnny Walker, Anderson, and Ozdemir, along with DC or even Stipe, DC or Stipe have the best chance of getting the fight against Jones.
Yeah, that's if he'll agree to go to heavyweight. I know he
doesn't want to.
But he only has, I mean, if literally at that, the only two fights I would want to see in that light heavyweight division with John Jones, other than facing DC, would be Johnny Walker or Corey Anderson. If he beats both of them, then there's nobody else left he would need to move up to heavyweight.
Yeah.
Because I feel like those are the only two challenges there left for John Jones.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, I mean, DC, business-wise, DC, there's a lot of bad blood. So if DC can get the job done this coming up Saturday at UFC 241, I feel like that could possibly be next for John Jones.
Have Jones and Miocic, they've never fought, have they?
No, Jones hasn't fought at heavyweight yet.
At all?
Mm-mm.
You're right. Okay. I guess that's why he's afraid to go up to it for DC.
Yeah, I mean, a lot
DC
of power up there.
Oh, yeah, he looked weak when he went down to light heavyweight. I mean, DC's a big guy.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, but that's where he wants to stay. So I don't think he should cut down to light heavyweight again.
But let's talk about this main event of the Fight Night 156 with Shevchenko and Carmouche.
That wasn't a great fight.
Fans did not like this fight in the arena. It was very vocal. They were getting booed out the arena.
Yeah.
I mean, this fight reminded me of a fight that, man, you watched a while back in Ngannou versus Lewis.
Where were we at when we watched that? Was that wasn't the one where we were at David Buster's?
Nah.
That was Lewis and Volkov.
We were out somewhere because I remember. But, this fight kind of...
Was it the IMAX? Because it was a little while back.
It was.
Or wait, was Lewis and Ngannou? That was after Volkov, right?
Mm-hmm. Because they gave him a big fight with Lewis. And they were just, they both had so much power.
Yeah.
They were scared to come forward. And
doo-doo.
Yeah. And that's kind of what I seen in this Shevchenko-Carmouche fight. Like, Shevchenko's just a monster. I mean, she's a killer. She... has viciously KO'd people with this spinning back wheel kick.
She's a great athlete.
Yeah, she's a very, very good fighter. So, I mean, I think as fans, we were just expecting some fireworks. We were expecting her to come forward a little bit. But, I mean, she got 2 knockdowns last night, but her and Carmouche was a very slow fight, not very exciting.
Yeah.
But,
yeah, a lot of, I think Carmouche got knocked down, twice, but it wasn't these powerful hits we're used to seeing Shevchenko perform. It was just these hits where it more or less looked like Carmouche was tripping on her own feet.
Yeah. But I mean, Shevchenko retained the title.
Still won.
So she's still the 125-pound champion. But just don't know what's next for her. I mean, that division's really getting built. I just don't see anybody in that division. I mean, I think you got Paige Van Zandt and Karate Hottie are fighting each other. But I mean,
I don't think neither one of them are on
but
Shevchenko's
I still don't
level.
think they're on Shevchenko's level. So I just think the only other person that could really challenge her is Nunes. And I mean, everybody's gonna have their opinion on this because Nunes has beat her twice, but that second fight was a very close fight, and it could have went Shevchenko's way.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, could we see Shevchenko and Cyborg? Excluding
That's a little different, but I kind of
excluding
like that.
excluding how Dana White's treating Cyborg right now, and let's get back to Shevchenko and Cyborg in a second. For those of you who do not know, Dana White, he's great at what he does. He's brought the UFC up from its roots, but he also, just like all of us, he's flawed, and one of his biggest flaws is that he makes decisions about fighters based off his personal emotions. And it's not these gut choice emotions. It's, hey, I don't like you. I really don't want you to fight here anymore. We see that with Woodley. We see that with Cyborg. And we see that with anybody else that he's not a fan of. Which is insane because the people who he's not fans of are more than likely some of the biggest people that the fans like to see.
Oh, yeah.
So he... what did he recently tell Cyborg?
So he recently verbally, I don't know if it's official, but he verbally released Chris Cyborg by the UFC.
Yeah.
He said that the UFC is not in the Chris Cyborg business anymore. He has tried to terminate her brand, make her look like she's not
the toughest woman's fighter out there. Yeah.
Which I think she is.
Yeah.
But I don't think anything it hasn't been on a contract. Like, she hasn't officially been released. But he said on his Tuesday Night Contender Series recently this week that he said that she does not want the Nunes rematch. But as we've seen, after she dominated in her recent fight, she wore that shirt after that said Nunes versus Cyborg 2 2020. So it's obvious she's making it known that she wants this fight.
Oh yeah, and if you even look at her tweets, she's making it known. And so Dana White Tuesday night said, well, if someone from her camp, right? Someone from her camp calls me before the night's over, which his press conference was at like 10 o'clock at night or something like that. He goes, if one of them call me before the night's over about the Nunes fight, then yeah, we can kind of look into it. And it's like you're giving them less than a 2-hour window. But yeah, they heard the call and they called him out. So allegedly, that's what she said on Twitter, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
Cyborg said that her manager, somebody called him that night.
He states that Cyborg is scared and knows she will get knocked out by Nunes and thinks that she just wants easy fights. But she obviously has voiced that she wants this fight.
Yeah.
And to me, I feel like this is the only fight that needs to be made right now.
Yeah.
Nunes versus Cyborg 2 by itself with a mediocre co-main event could hit on a card. I would buy it. I know a lot of other people would buy
they
it.
would have huge numbers tuning into that pay-per-view.
This is the biggest fight you can make in all of the women's divisions in UFC is these two.
Yeah. We need to see round 2.
Chris Cyborg is good for business. I don't understand what Dana is talking about on this. She's the most feared woman in women's combat sports. I think that's factual. That's not me being personal about it. I think that's factual. Out of boxing, women's boxing, UFC, all women's sports, she's the most dominant woman.
Except for, what's her name? Cortez over in China? Or the big woman.
Oh, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah,
that's Cyborg's training partner. I can't remember.
No way.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
But
It's not Cortez.
no, I can't remember her name, but she fights at heavyweight, and see, UFC doesn't have like a heavyweight division yet.
You know, I would love for the UFC to have a heavyweight women's division.
Oh, I'd love for it too.
I think a lot of people would love to see it, and I mean not just heavyweight, but all the weights between what they're working with. Because right now, we have these women who are petite, to say the least, and I mean they're built, they're jacked. I mean, look at Cyborg and Nunes. I mean, hell, they are more stout than most well-built men. Yeah. But, you know, we're still dealing with some pretty lightweight. So I think the fans would love to see, because fans just love looking at, like, the mecca of two big people. So, like, even though they didn't perform, the idea of Lewis and Ngannou was such a fun fight, because you were talking about these huge men just pounding each other to death, and I mean it was a great idea. So why not move on to that with women?
Her name is Gabby Garcia.
Garcia, that's the last name. And if we had a heavyweight division for women's and we brought Garcia over, nobody would stop her, because nobody can stop her now.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think where she's fighting at, I heard that they're more or less just pinning anybody up against her for fun. They're just doing like housewives and things like that, just for a show.
They really are. I seen for one of her fights, she was actually facing a woman that looked to be significantly older than her.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for the listeners
like the
out there,
looked like she should
not have been fighting.
fighting.
At all.
So.
Well, for the listeners out there, you need to get on Google, Bing, whatever, and look up Gabby Garcia. She looks like when SpongeBob and Patrick were wrestling, and then they both just turned into these big guys. And then one was like, "Oh, you're wearing pink," and the other was like, "Oh, you're wearing yellow." But that's Gabby Garcia. She is just this huge woman.
Yeah, she would be good for business in the UFC.
I
feel like a lot of people would tune in to her fights.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I could even see them doing, what are they called? Like promo, not donation fights, but they're called those fights where they're just trying to like donate money to cancer and things like that. What are those fights called?
Charity.
Yeah, a charity event.
Yeah.
I could see them even doing like a charity event where she wrestles someone like Ngannou, and it's just like a wrestle match, no like actually fighting. You know, they shake hands, but a lot of people would tune into that, and it would be great for charity.
Oh yeah.
So I think the UFC would definitely benefit from having more women's division, and also, I mean, it's 2019. Women are moving up in the world. And that also means more women are actually wanting to fight now. And women are built just like men. They're built in all different sizes and shapes. So right now the UFC kind of makes it look like women are just either small or smaller. Yeah. And that's not how women are built. And so I think it would be nice to see different weight classes for some women.
I would love to see Gabby Garcia in the UFC if they could provide a suitable weight class with decent opponents around her. I do think the UFC will eventually install more weight classes for women, but I do think it will be over time. It'll be slow.
Yeah, it'll be slow. Like probably before Garcia could even really fight in the UFC.
Yeah.
But I mean, if let's say they had a heavyweight division for women like Garcia, I feel like most of her opponents are just going to be women with a lot of mass, not like stout.
Yeah,
I mean, this woman is huge, but like, I think she's just going to mostly be fighting like overweight women. So I guess that's kind of the issue. But I mean, there are a lot of tall, large women out there, but some tall women are very thin, and some short women are very wide. Yeah. But I don't think we would find another woman like Gabby Garcia willing to fight, because we'd probably know about her by now.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, that's not to say she's not another valuable opponent for Garcia's not out there. But also, let's think about this real quick. I mean, I know all of this is just speculation, but let's say the UFC had this division and they brought Garcia over, and there was some other woman, let's just say a Russian, because
Mm-hmm.
Russia has some big people. Let's say Russia brought some woman over who was the same size as Gabby, always been, cutting wood and fighting and whatnot. I think she'd rip Gabby a new one, because Gabby's just been fighting these soft housewives and old ladies, mostly for charity or for publicity.
Yeah.
So I don't think, it's kind of like if one of us was playing basketball against kindergartners, then somebody our age was like, yo, let's go play basketball. Like, we're not going to be ready to play ball with somebody who's like our age and our skill set.
Yeah.
But that's only if they had been.
I mean, I feel like if they really, really wanted to, and they really wanted, I mean, they made the UFC made a division around Cyborg. They made that 145 division around Cyborg. There wasn't a 145 division. They brought her in and brought people to go around her. I mean, there's so many people in the world, so many billion people in the world. There's got to be women to fill this heavyweight division, or not even heavyweight. I'm sure Gabby Garcia.
How heavy is Garcia?
I'm not sure, man. She might not even be a heavyweight. She might be like, she could be like middleweight, light, heavyweight. But there's,
well, I guess it depends.
They can still make a division for her.
Oh yeah.
Like they could find the people.
Well, if they made all these women divisions, do you think they would make the weight the exact same as the male divisions? Like, do you think they would, like right now, what is it called? Featherweight for the women's?
Featherweight 125.
And what's the 145 weight class for women?
No, featherweight is 145.
Then what's the one under that? Featherweight's the lightest weight, I thought.
Featherweight's the heaviest.
For women?
I think. So 145 is the heaviest weight class for women, then 135, then a 125, and a 115. That's all the UFC
They have a
has.
115?
Yeah.
Okay, so...
That's the one that Jessica Andrade is the champion of. You got Rose
right.
Eunice, Joanna, and Jacek.
Yeah, you're right. Oh, yeah. Oh, I love Jacek.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's definitely a fan favorite. So, let's say they opened up the same... Let's say they opened up more weight classes for women. Do you think they would need to match the weight classes for the guys? But right now they're working with 4 weight classes. And what's the lowest the guys go down to? 125?
Yeah, the guys just go to...
It doesn't go down to 115.
No.
So do you think... right now it ends at 145. Do you think they would just need to start jumping by 20 and have like a 165, then a 185?
I feel like the easiest thing to do would probably match the guys' weight classes.
Just match it completely.
But if you
then
matched
add
it with every weight class, that would be a whole lot of fighters.
You'd have a plethora of
and
it would be hard to
a
fill all those weight classes with women.
And then having that many fighters would go against like fighters being paid good, like everybody wants. We say they don't get paid enough. If we had that many fighters, there'd be no way they would receive an applicable amount of pay.
But that's kind of like fighters now. You don't get paid to train. You get paid to fight.
Mm-hmm.
And so whoever is on top, we know Garcia is like the Nagano for like the women's class.
Yeah.
Just one of the biggest women out there, like Frances Ngannou. So she'd be getting paid. But let's say we had all the weight classes for the women that we had for the men. We would need to keep the 115 weight class for women, but I feel like, to be fair, we'd also have to open up a 115 for men. I don't know many guys that are that small.
I don't either.
But I feel like you would have a lot of people say, well, to be fair, you'd have to have that weight class. Or maybe they would just get rid of the 115 women's weight class and say, we'll do same thing for the women we do for the guys, and just have it completely fair. Because I feel like that's what it's 2019, and I feel like that's what a lot of people are arguing now, is just equality between women and men.
Yeah.
Not all women and men are built the same. We have many different sizes for both genders, and I mean any gender in between. Me and Marcus, we definitely don't judge. We're not the people to care what gender you want to be, what person you want to be. We just want you to be happy. But as far as this goes, if they just wanted to match the male weight class, maybe they would need to abolish the 115 weight class, because then you would have all the same weight classes the males had, and then had the 115 weight class too. So like the women would have one extra one, and then you might have people say that's
Sort of like,
two extra, like that's like an extra weight class that's not fair to the men.
I see where you're going with this. Sort of like Title IX in
Yeah.
college
Just-
sports and
yeah.
or in all sports. Yeah.
Oh, it's well, see, Title IX's so funny. It's like it's in all college sports. But for those of you who don't know, I was a bus driver, driving transit, public transit, mostly for Radford University College. But we even had to abide by Title IX to show that we were not prejudiced of race, gender, ethnicity, age, any religion, anything like that. Like we didn't care. Well, we didn't care on paper, but we definitely had some workers who were a little not abiding by that. But we won't go into that. This is for UFC and good stories. That's not a good story. So, but that's just the thing. I feel like UFC would. I feel like they would get a lot more viewers if they practiced. I'm not saying they don't practice Title IX, because they get fighters from all over the world. But if they practice Title IX as far as matching the male's weight class, and I feel like they would need to get rid of the 115 weight class, because these women are probably walking around at 130 and cutting down to 115. So they wouldn't need to.
With them eliminating that, that's a
Yeah.
hard weight for, and you would have people cutting, because fighters want to get the best advantage they can have. So you will have people that will be willing to cut 40 pounds. I mean, they're cutting 8-10 pounds the night before the fight, just completely
Exactly.
draining all the water. So
Like Romero, that one time when he fought Whitaker and he could not make the weight. It was their last fight.
I remember.
And he could barely hold himself up on the scale, and he still didn't make weight, so they didn't count it as a title fight anymore. But so I mean, you just have these people starving themselves, taking laxative. They even limit the amount of water they drink, because water is a heavy substance. So if the water is just sitting in your body, that counts as weight on the scale. So they try to limit how much of the water they drink when they're trying to cut weight too. So it's insane what these fighters endure just to cut that weight. And even Cyborg, she talked about not fighting anymore because cutting weight was so hard on her liver.
That's why she only fights at 145 now.
Yeah.
She had to stop making 135. They released a video on YouTube. I mean, it was brutal to watch. It was just her trying to get those extra pounds off, hot baths, and pouring boiling hot water on her body, trying to get like the extra weight off.
Yeah, like that
just sauna
extra
type
dead
of
skin and stuff like that.
tactics, it's just brutal. I mean, that they go through that, but everybody
Just to get a few
everybody wants to
ounces.
get an advantage.
Yeah,
in fighting.
because what is it? You have
being heavier the night of the fight is an actual advantage.
Oh yeah, and so what is it? You have 2 days after weigh-ins until your fight.
No, you weigh in. So you weigh in
At night, then
day
the next
before
day.
the morning. So like if the fight's
The
on
morning?
Saturday, you'll weigh in Friday morning.
Friday morning. Oh
So
yeah,
you
you're
kinda
right.
have
They
more
make it
than
look like it's at
24
night,
hours.
where it's in a black room.
Yeah,
But yeah, you're right. So you have 24 hours, and we've seen fighters gain
15, 20
15,
pounds.
20 pounds
Yeah.
back, just to get that extra advantage over their opponent. But it's so hard for their liver, because the liver has to process that much extra food and that much extra water in such a short amount of time. And then it goes from starving itself and not processing much food and nutrients to having to overprocess. And then we see in Cyborg's case where she had to stop doing that. So I think she walks around at like 155, only cuts 10, and only gains about 8 or so before the fight. So which for me, I feel like as a fighter, I would not want to cut 20 pounds, because I feel like that's such a drastic change for your body overnight. And in just a short, 36 hours or so, I feel like your body will not know how to adjust to that rapid weight change. So, I like how Cyborg's been doing it. It's just dropping a little bit, then gaining a little bit. And she's, for me, I actually look at her like she's been performing really well, because she's not having to endure so much body changes. And if you look at it, her opponent, let's say her opponent walks around at like, um, 160 and she's dropping 15, then gaining 15. That's a lot to drop and just to gain back, just to get a 5 extra pounds.
And when you're dropping weight like that, the night of the fight, I mean, you're not as strong.
Yeah, you're weak.
Your
so
chin's weak. I mean,
you're
blood
fatigued.
flow's not the same.
Yeah,
and
your whole body has a negative toll on it when you cut that much weight and then you just overload it with all the weight you put on it in such a short amount of time. And so I feel like Cyborg is making a good choice by not cutting as much, because you see her opponents come in and they're overcutting and overeating in 24 hours, 24 to 36 hours, and they're fatigued, they're tired, but she's comfortable because she's not far off from what she's normally walking around at.
Yeah.
And she's in there just dominating people. I mean, except for the Nunes fight. Nunes is a great fighter.
Yeah.
So, I would love to see all the, women's division weight classes match the male division weight class. And like you said, you were talking about the finances of it. First of all, the UFC should invest more into their fighters. I feel like as far as training goes, the UFC should I feel like the fighters should, cover their own private health insurance for the year or two or whatever, while they're not fighting. But I feel like any damages in the ring should be covered by UFC. So like Mike Perry, he should be able to have his nose fixed from the UFC and from their insurance without ever having to worry about his own insurance. That should be something.
Completely agree.
Yeah, that should be something they cover, and I feel like the fighters should be paid a little more. But but I feel like that can only be said for the fighters on top. A fighter who's ranked 10th in the division should not be getting paid as much as the fighter who's first contender for the belt.
Yeah.
And so then I feel like the UFC would not actually be suffering by adding the extra weight classes, because it's not saying we're adding this many extra fights every night we have a fight, because then let's say there's like 8 fights a night now and you add 6 more and you have the same amount of people tune in, then they're not going to be losing money. They're just going to be spending more money on fighters. But I feel like if they just kept it at like, if it's 8, let's just say it's 8 fights a night now, and they moved that to 10 fights, then you just included some more fights in different weight classes for male and female, then I feel like you're going to have more women viewers come out with their husbands, because I'm sure they get tired of the, some people call it toxic masculinity.
Yeah.
That's a term we see spread out now. But some women are just going to say there's too much masculinity in regular UFC. So if you're just seeing a lot more women fights, I think we're going to have a lot more women viewers, which is more money coming in for the UFC. And I guarantee they would make a profit, have more viewers, and a lot more people right now. In 2019, they're kind of rebelling these things that aren't completely fair between male and female. So I feel like if they did that, you really would get a lot more viewers, a lot more income. And I do not think the UFC would be spending more money, because they're only paying fighters who fight.
Yeah.
Then they're only paying fighters with big names more money. So fight night, if you won co-main event, what do those fighters walk out with? Like a couple $100,000?
See, like,
it depends on your name.
To a certain stage, like Alistair Overeem and Al Bowski, where they're like legends in the sport, they've gotten to a certain pay grade. So once you're in the UFC for a while, so I think they get $300,000 just to show
up for a regular fight night. That's not pay-per-view.
And if you're fighting for a championship, like with them or something, $500,000.
If you win, right? Or is that just just to show up?
Some people, that's just to show up.
Yeah.
And keep moving up. Pay grades throughout the years.
So a lot of it depends on your name.
Reebok gives pay, where the UFC sponsored by Reebok. Reebok pays athletes. The bigger name you are, the more you get paid by Reebok for the sponsorship.
That too. Yeah. And sponsorships, that's completely aside, like they pay you separate from what the UFC pays you. So someone, I know it doesn't actually work this way, but I mean, we could totally see Romero being a sponsor for, let's just say Shady Rays, which are very good sunglasses. This is not an advertisement, but they are great sunglasses. I got my best friend right here. I got him hooked on them because I saw an advertisement one day for them, and I was always buying these Walmart sunglasses that were just crap, and they would break, and they were so dull. They would dim everything out. And then I just said, screw it. I bought a pair of Shady Rays, and I even found a discount online. I think I used like Honey or something like that. I don't know. I just looked up Shady Rays discount, found like 38 or 40% off or something. Bought them, and I spent like $28 total. Oh, here they are actually for anybody who wants to know. And they do not dull out your surroundings. Yeah. Like I was driving in fog from my job in Roanoke, and I could not see anything. Then I was like, well, let me just put these on, and my whole surrounding was enhanced. I could see people's lights on their car better. I could see through the fog a little bit better.
Oh yeah,
and I felt a lot safer wearing them in this dense fog when I could not see anything, and I had a tractor trailer riding my ass too, and it was a rough drive back from work. But then I got you hooked on them. What, they came in yesterday?
Yeah,
yesterday, and they're great.
They're great. They look great.
I know this sounds like an advertisement, guys. Sorry to sound like we're selling them to you. We're definitely fans of Shady Rays, but this is not an advertisement where they pay us. I'm bragging about them. They're a great product, and lifetime, replacement if something breaks on them. That's crazy. Who does that? Like Otterbox doesn't even do that. You've got to pay for shipping.
Yeah.
So, but that's whatever. But no, so let's say Romero gets sponsorship from Shady Rays, and they're like, well, we'll just give you like $100,000 tonight, for like wearing our logo on your trunks or whatever. And
they used to be able to do that.
Yeah, they used to be able to do that. Then let's say a fighter who's not as good goes to Walmart, and Walmart's like, you know what, man, we'll give your ass like $1 million. Why not? So that's not really what the UFC pays the fighters, and that's why it's kind of unfair. Now that would never really happen. They're not going to pay somebody like I can't even think of a small name. Let's say Forrester Griffin got back in there. Well, nah, people would probably pay a crap ton, and because he's a big name. But you know what I'm saying. If somebody from our local TOC was in the UFC for one night, no one's going to give him like $1 million to represent their logo. But I'm just saying that's kind of, you can't count that into what the UFC pays the fighters because that's not coming from the UFC. But the UFC is making all this money, but a lot of it is just going into the CEO's pockets and all the big names. A lot of it's going into them, and so there's actually, I didn't know if you knew this, but there's actually this little bit of a push and this little movement on like social media, and people are starting to not watch UFC as much, and not like, they'll watch like the fight nights and stuff like that, because you can watch that for what, $10 a month on the ESPN Plus app.
Just $4.99 a month.
Oh well, yeah, $5 a month. You can watch that every Friday.
Not advertising.
Not advertising. That's $4.99 a month. And you can watch that for that much a month, but people aren't wanting to invest in pay-per-views anymore because they're like, well, my money's not going to the fighters, and I'm here to watch the fighters. I'm not here to watch Dana White. So instead, they're spending their pay-per-view money on boxing because boxers are getting a lot of money, and even people in
get a bigger percentage
in
of
like
pay-per-view buys.
Yeah, and Pride and stuff like that, they're starting to actually pay their fighters really well, because without the fighters, they're literally nothing. It's not one of those things where if you got a job at Walmart and they're like, oh, well, we couldn't do it without you. It's like the weight of like you showing up there is not keeping Walmart in business. Fighters don't show up, UFC's going to crash.
Yeah.
So that's kind of and the UFC, they have a lot to pay for. They have arenas they've got to rent out. You've got to pay so much behind the scenes cost that we don't know about. So it's not like they're only paying fighters. They do have a lot to pay for, and we are considerate of that. But these fighters, we
They're
feel
putting their
like aren't
bodies on the
getting.
line. They
Yeah,
can
they're
die.
putting their. I mean, look at Mike Perry's nose. Like he sacrificed his nose for that fight. Look at Ben Askren's brain. My God, I'm sure that thing was like scrambled eggs.
He didn't have a concussion. The MRIs didn't find anything. So
I think he needs to get a different opinion because if you, for those of you who did not see the Masvidal and Ben Askren fight, Masvidal got the fastest knockout in UFC history, and at literally 5 seconds in the first round, flying knee kick to Ben Askren. Marcus here, he's a fan of Askren. I'm not. So I remember we were watching it at our friend's house, and I got up. I just went, oh, and I'm cheering, and I get in Marcus's face. I'm like, ooh, like just boasting. But Ben Askren, he put his life on the line. And even another bad one, I think Volkov, after his Lewis fight, actually had announced that he had neck problems for a little while. And he had to wear a cast. Because if you look at...
that was a bad knockout.
Yeah, that was
Both of their necks were slumped. Like, it looked like their necks were broke after they got knocked out.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, so, I mean, Volkov, yeah, that's another knockout you need to look at. It was Derek Lewis and...
Conor McGregor and Khabib card.
Yeah, it was the Conor McGregor and Khabib card, which that was a controversial ending to the Conor McGregor and Khabib fight because, Khabib had his teammates jump in the ring and start punching McGregor. But yeah, so look up that card. And do we have it up here? I was going to...
Right there.
Yeah, so it's...
Yeah,
look up UFC 229, Derek Lewis and Volkov. Because Derek Lewis was getting rocked the whole 3 rounds.
Oh yeah, he was gonna lose.
He was gonna lose, and he looked like shit. Like he was so wore out. He was rough looking. Then like the last 20 seconds of I really think it was the last 14 seconds of the 3rd round.
Yeah,
he just threw a hell of a haymaker, and Volkov's neck just shifted over, and Derek Lewis wound up winning that fight because the ref called it at 3 seconds, 2 or 3 seconds left, because Lewis got on top and just started pounding him, and the ref was like, I literally have to call this, because the refs have to call it when the person getting hit on the ground cannot defend themselves anymore. And so it's normally after like 5-6 punches the refs can't like hold on to it anymore. So Derek Lewis won. That was turned into a lot of memes and gifs because people were like, my balls was hot. but again, Volkov, his neck had some problems after that, according to him or someone in his camp. I remember reading that somewhere. And so these fighters are putting their life on the line, and I feel like the UFC needs to pay for top grade medical care for fighters from any damages they sustain in the ring that night they fight. You get hurt in training camp, that should not be on the fall of the UFC, but anything that happens in the ring of a fight night or a pay-per-view, I feel like the UFC needs to cover it until it is completely fixed. Yeah. So if the doctors tell Mike Perry, we literally need to replace your nose with a brand new one, that's going to be very expensive, but I think the UFC and their insurance need to cover that because Mike Perry put his life on the line and his nose.
Yeah.
But I think they've gotten a bad rap because they're not the best at doing that.
Yeah.
They're not the best at protecting their fighters and taking care of them. And so that's why people are going back, tracing all the way back. That's why some people are going to pay-per-view boxing.
Yeah.
So
let's get into
we
was talking about Askren and Masvidal earlier. So let's get into this really stacked welterweight division. One of the best division. Probably you could argue that this is the best division.
Yeah, you could argue it because we have so many great fighters in it right now.
But a recent fight that just happened, Colby Chaos Covington. I mean, it's completely
jerk.
Yeah, I don't like him.
Most people don't like this guy.
But I mean, he had a really good fight. He dominated Robbie Lawler in a lot of ways. The pressure he provided I mean, he threw the most strikes in UFC history and landed the most strikes in UFC history in a single fight, I believe.
This was not the same Lawler, though.
No.
And something for the listeners out there, you'll see me and Marcus, we will talk about these fights emotionally, but we'll also talk about them analytically. So emotionally, we don't like Covington. We don't like this guy. And it's not because he wears MAGA hats or anything like that. He's just a very disrespectful guy. So he was talking to RDA and talking crap about his home country of Brazil. And that is a very disrespectful thing to do. I mean, we understand that fighters are going to trash talk, but to sit there and talk about an entire country, and he was calling them like monkeys or something like that. It was a very disrespectful thing he said. And so he crossed the line with stuff like that, but that's just one example that shows you the kind of person that Colby Covington is. And if RDA had said something like, oh, well, Americans are all just fat and lazy and stupid, people would get worked up and they would say that that's rude as well. But, you know, we have other fighters around the world that have more respect for the sport and for their fighters and their home country. So that's why we do not like Colby Covington. So for anybody listening who watches the sport and understands that he does support Donald Trump and wears MAGA hats, that is not why we don't like him. And me and Marcus, we're not going to get political on this show. We don't really care enough about politics to talk about it on here. It's not necessary. And this is really just a couple of best friends having a good time, but politics are not something you're going to see us talk about. So if we say we do not like somebody, do not ever assume that it's politics. Because that has nothing to do with it. Government politics. But, you know, UFC politics, that's different. You know, we're not always a big fan of Dana White because of the politics within the UFC. Like, he's not paying fighters enough and insurance and all that. That's UFC politics is okay. So, but that's just a side note. So you were saying we don't like Covington, but he provided great pressure on Lawler. So, yeah, let's get back to that. I just want to make a note.
Following, you know, this very dominant win, Dana has stated that Colby versus Usman, Kamaru Usman is next for the title. So Colby, he talked his way into a title shot. He went out there and beat a very good Robbie Lawler. Now it's realistic. He's got his title shot against Kamaru Usman. Did you see the trash talk that they had after the fight? Not
the Usman and Covington. Oh yeah, that was like middle school trash talk. It's like, come at me, bro. Come at me, like, and nothing. But I mean, it's also annoying because that's what we just said about Covington. He's disrespectful. I mean, that's not a time when you sit there and talk trash. You're wearing suits. You're at an announcer's table. You're more or less performing analyses, and you're not supposed to act that way in that setting. But this guy just doesn't understand that. So it very elementary trash talking, but from a very disrespectful guy.
So
is it confirmed that they're fighting?
Yeah, it's confirmed that
when is it?
They're acting like it could be on the November card, UFC 244.
244?
Yeah. But
is that going to be November already? Because
September,
we're in August, and that's
September
241.
You got Khabib 242.
242. Then you have
October
243.
Yeah, so 244.
Yeah,
But they're acting like it's going to be on that card, possibly, or get pushed back to December. But
so we'll see that fight by the end of the
this
year.
Could be
more
a
than
boring
likely.
fight that the fans don't like, because these are two wrestlers. So,
yeah.
I mean, you depending on how they go about it. See, in their trash talk, something that really surprised me was Colby and Usman, when asked how they would finish each other, both said by knockout.
Yeah, both said they would knock the other one out.
Colby has one career technical knockout. and then Kamaru Usman actually has one knockout, but most of their wins are by decision.
By decision or by submission.
Well, by submission, they haven't really finished anybody either.
Oh,
I don't
really?
think finishes. I think a lot.
Oh yeah,
because
they're wrestlers. They're not submissors.
I think a lot of their finishes have been by decision. So I just didn't agree with that.
Yeah,
that's another reason why the trash talk was so terrible, because I mean, like,
it's not accurate.
They're not talking truth.
Yeah, so I mean, if Masvidal had said he's the next person he fights, he would realistically look for a knockout, we could see that as a plausible outcome, because Masvidal, excluding Askren's knockout, he has knocked out several people in the past, because he's a knockout fighter. He's not much of a wrestler. He's more of a stay on your feet, throw punches till someone can't stand it anymore. And so that's a little more realistic if Masvidal had said that. But we're looking at two people who aren't knockout artists. We're looking at people who are wrestlers, and, you know, they're very technical fighters about, you know, two jabs and stuff like that. So for them to say they were wanting to knock the other, or they expected to knock the other one out, that's just inaccurate for these two fighters.
How do you see this fight going?
Emotionally, Usman.
Yeah.
Yeah, personal preference. It's always going to be against Covington. But this is one of those fights where if Covington fights like he did with Lawler, and Usman comes out to play, it's going to be a very even matched fight. And so, like you said, this could be a very exciting match, or it could be extremely boring, like the Lewis and Ngannou fight.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like, I can't really pick a winner on this just because of their fight styles. They're so even. Usman is a very big welterweight. I would like to say that could help him, but I don't know, because I've always said that I didn't think that Colby Covington deserved to be on this stage, because he hasn't really beat anybody. Then he got the fight against RDA. After he beat RDA, I was like, well, RDA's was a lightweight. He's not a real welterweight. So he was small.
Yeah, so he
came out there and beat Robbie Lawler, which is still very, I mean, I know Robbie Lawler is getting older, but he's still very good.
He is a vicious fighter. So, I mean, the Lawler fight with Covington, it's almost... It's still a win for Covington, but it's almost hard to say that he truly won, because if we were looking at Lawler in his prime versus Covington in his prime, the fight would have been not what it was. Covington wouldn't have thrown 500 punches. But the fact that Lawler was more or less like a moving punching bag with some head bobs and whatnot, it was not a great fight for Lawler. And so if that was the first time you've ever seen him fight, I know it's not a great first impression, but he is really a wonderful fighter. So maybe he just was hurt, or he had some personal things going on that made him not perform as well as he normally does.
Staying in the welterweight division, since we got Colby versus Usman, you know, Dana's already announced that that's going to be next. You know, we still got a stacked division of a lot of guys. We got Woodley out there. Knott doesn't have a fight. Masvidal doesn't have a fight. It was just announced that Ben Askren and Damian Maia is fighting on October 26th, so that's going to be a very good fight to watch.
Yeah, I feel like that would have been a good fight for the UFC to start with Askren, because for those of you who don't know, the UFC actually traded Mighty Mouse for Askren, and it was, am I right, the first trade of UFC history?
First trade in combat sports history within the sport of fighting.
Yeah, okay, so this was the first trade ever. And so now Mighty Mouse is at one championship?
Yep.
He's over at one championship. Where's that at? It's out of, that's out of China, right?
I think, but they fight.
They fight everywhere.
They fight everywhere. So
yeah.
They fight everywhere.
But he's...
Because Eddie Alvarez is in it too. And Sage Northcutt. Yeah.
Okay, so we have several fighters from the UFC who went to one championship. Now, Mighty Mouse, a lot of fans who don't know the backstory would just say, oh my God, how could you trade Mighty Mouse for Askren? But Mighty Mouse kind of he didn't want to leave the UFC, but he wanted to prove that he was the GOAT to to get a belt from every promotion.
Yeah.
So he wants to get a belt from UFC, which he has done, and wants to get it from One Championship and Pride and any other big name promotions out there.
Yeah.
So, Mighty Mouse was pretty okay with the trade. But now, when they brought Askren in, they just hyped this guy up.
He was undefeated. He'd never been beaten.
Yeah, he was
Champion
undefeated.
that Bellator championship.
Yeah, he was undefeated, and they really hyped him up for that. Said he was people were calling him the world's greatest fighter for his weight class. But his first fight in the UFC was Lawler, and he really didn't have that much to show that he was like the world championship. I mean the world champion. Lawler gave him a few hard hits, and it stunned him.
It looked like it could have been ended.
Yeah,
Herb Dean could have possibly ended it.
Yeah, and that was actually pretty controversial because Lawler was on top, just pounding him and pounding him. But was it Herb that was the?
It was Herb. Yeah.
Okay, but Herb, by the rule of the referees, he could have stopped it because Askren was not defending himself at that time. He was so dazed from the few hard hits that Lawler gave him that he was not defending himself. So Herb Dean could have called it. He didn't. Then Askren came back and won. Pretty controversial. But I think maybe starting him out around somebody who was like ranked 8 would have been more fair because they just came in and put him against the top.
Yeah, I think Damian Maia should have been the first fight. It's going to be a very good matchup. I believe this is a win or go home for Askren. If he wins, he is still going to be a top 5 welterweight. He's still going to be a very good contender in this division. He's possibly from then on out, depending on what happens with Woodley, because they said they would never fight each other. He's going to be 1 or 2, probably 2 fights away from a UFC title shot if he can beat Damian Maia. Yeah,
Woodley and Askren, they're good friends. For those of you who don't know, they're good friends. So I have to agree. So whatever happens with Askren, it's if he loses, that will be 2 losses and 1 half win.
Yeah.
And I think they did the trade, so I think they're going to kind of keep him for a little while and keep kind of investing in him and hope he comes out again.
He got a lot of popularity with his name because he got a lot of Twitter followers. The 2 pay-per-views he's been in has had a lot of buys. People are interested in it. And maybe once they start watching him fight, they might not be as interested because of the wrestling part of it. But I think they like his talk on Twitter. He's got like a boom roasted thing where he roasts. He hasn't did it in a while since his knockout, but he was talking about. He would just say something about Masvidal and then be like, "Boom, roasted." Like it was
that came very from
catchy.
I think. People have always been like, "Boom, roasted," but if we're talking about television, they did that on The Office. And Michael Scott went around and was like roasting some of the people around The Office, and he goes, "Boom, roasted." And so one of the women, he looks at her character's name was Meredith. He goes, "Meredith, you've slept with so many men, you're starting to look like one." Boom, roasted. That's just what that reminded me of. So Askren can't go boom roasted anymore. He was still talking crap to Masvidal after the fight,
and that's why I like him. I think that was his first loss. I think he handled it very well.
Yeah, he didn't handle it like Rousey handled it. Yeah. She did not handle losing well, but you're right. Askren handled losing pretty well.
So staying on the topic of Askren you mentioned that him and Woodley are really good friends. So a lot of people are wondering what's next for Woodley. He's not getting this title shot.
No, he definitely doesn't deserve the title. Didn't he say he thinks he should get an instant rematch?
Yeah.
But a lot of people are saying, no, man, you didn't really perform. You do not deserve an instant rematch right now for the title.
And I agree. That's why I think what needs to be next is Woodley versus George Masvidal. I think the build up around this fight would be great. You could even put this as like a Rocky Balboa storyline. Woodley is avenging his friend's loss. I mean, I hate to be like put Askren as Apollo Creed that got killed, but then Masvidal's this big bad Russian.
It kind of fits though, because even when Askren was knocked out, I remember you were concerned. You were like, guys, he could be dead right now, like because he was on the floor for minutes, and normally they bounce back after 30 seconds.
Yep, but Masvidal's got all this hype around him right now. Woodley's number one contender in the welterweight division based off rankings.
Okay, yeah, so, based off ranking.
Give him Woodley number one contender. Yeah. I don't understand what's better than that. I mean, I know the UFC's talking about trying to make this Leon Edwards versus Masvidal. If you didn't know, they got into a little scuffle a couple of fight nights ago. It was when Masvidal knocked out Darren Till. Him and Edwards got into an argument backstage. Masvidal hit him with a couple of punches. Leon Edwards there was a bunch of people in between them, so I mean Edwards couldn't really do anything. But Edwards is like number 9 on the top 10 welterweights, so I just think that would be a step back from Masvidal. That's why I really Masvidal versus Woodley, possibly even make it the co-main event at UFC 244 under Colby Covington versus Usman. I mean, that would just be perfect, man. And then, Colby maybe even winning the belt. Colby versus Woodley possibly. Or Colby versus Masvidal. Colby and Masvidal are best friends right now. Really good friends, supposedly, because they train at the same training camp. So, I mean, making either one of those fights, I don't understand. Like, it's good for business either way. Woodley, Covington, Masvidal, Covington. Make this Woodley versus Masvidal fight. It's the fight that needs to happen in the welterweight division.
Do you think Masvidal and Covington would want to fight where they are?
They've already said they would.
They said they would?
They've already departed, so they both train at American Top Team.
Oh, I thought you meant they were currently training together.
They recently stopped.
Yeah, recently. And they said they'd be willing to fight.
This is like within the last 2 months. They started seeing that they would possibly fight each other, so they're still at the same gym. They just don't train at the same times. They don't have contact anymore. I mean, I wouldn't say they were best friends, but they were really good friends. But I mean, they're going about it good.
They're being professional.
They know they can possibly see each other down the road. I mean, even if Colby loses to Usman, Colby Masvidal is still a fight.
That's definitely still a fight. But no, so I mean, right now, I think the Colby and Usman, that's going to happen. Now, I do think we did say analytically we don't really have an opinion, a good strong opinion on who we think would come out. But if Usman came out on top, and then let's say Masvidal and Woodley got, they had a fight and Masvidal won. I think it would, first of all, it'd be bad for Woodley. Woodley has been on top for years, and I'd hate to see him go down that slope. I think after 2 losses, it would be hard for Woodley to bounce back. I mean, just in his own mind and emotions, it would be hard for him to come back. But for Masvidal, I think it would be good to see him against Usman for the belt, because I think at that point he would deserve it. So I think if Masvidal and Woodley fought, whoever won, I think would be a good contender for the belt. Even if Covington beats Usman, I definitely think it would be nice to see, because like you said, you could put some drama into this and some emotions and make it seem like a soap opera. With Askren and Woodley trying to defend his honor by fighting Masvidal.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, you could sell this pretty well. Then just have the winner. I mean, have the winner be the next contender for the belt. So
yeah, there's definitely some great possibilities.
So
that could
many
be
good possibilities
made in this welterweight division now that Colby versus Usman has been announced. There's a lot of good fights. I mean, you got Darren Till still without a fight. Like, there's a lot of good fighters. But
has Covington and Woodley fought?
No,
I didn't think so.
Yeah, that's what it was offered. So Colby won that intern belt. 2 months later, they offered him Tyron Woodley, but he supposedly had I think it's called deviated septum surgery on his nose, which Mary had that too.
Yeah, Mary. I was gonna say, didn't Mary have that?
I don't know the recovery period on it. I think she recovered from it well, but obviously she's not a fighter and getting hit in the face.
Yeah, not gonna get punched where her septum's healing.
But I don't know, and they really got mad at Colby, so they stripped his interim title.
Why'd they get mad at him? Because of the surgery?
Because he didn't accept it because of the surgery. So that him and Woodley was supposed to fight then. I think it was UFC 230 last November.
Is that fair, though, I don't like Covington.
I don't like him either, but it didn't sound fair.
Yeah, because it's, if... That doesn't sound fair. Yeah. I mean... And for you listeners, like I said, we do have... Me and Marcus have our emotions towards these people, but we're also going to call it analytically and see what's fair and not fair, and this just doesn't sound fair. It doesn't sound fair that they said, hey, you've got to get surgery on your deviated septum. It's not at all your fault you have a deviated septum, but whatever, man. So I don't really know if that's fair, but it is what it is. So Covington, he is making a comeback, so maybe he's mad about that. Yeah. I was like, screw you guys.
But let's get into the real, the real event of the summer. UFC 241. I mean, listeners, you need to go out and watch this card. It is a heck of a card. This is just 3 fights off of the main card. There's some other good fights, but we got Romero versus Paulo Costa, Pettis versus Diaz, and then to top it off, we got DC versus Stipe Miocic 2.
Number 2.
I mean, what a card.
Yeah, it is so stacked. And honestly, I got to say, this is probably one of the best pay-per-views, not even just of the summer, but in like the last year or two.
Oh, yeah.
We've not seen a card this stacked in so long. And these 3 main fights, they're not just great fighters, but there is also some drama behind these fights. There is some heat and some tension. We even have Diaz, Nate Diaz, 3 years coming off from his last fight.
Oh yeah.
So it's there's a lot to talk about. So let's definitely get started. Let's talk about Romero and Costa.
This is a great fight right here. We got 2 warriors. I mean, these guys. These 2 guys for years, people have been trying to say they're on steroids. I mean, these are stout dudes, cut to the bone like Greek gods. I mean, their bodies look like statues.
Oh yeah,
they're just warriors, and this is a fight that the fans want to see. I believe this fight was made for the fans. You got 2 really tough guys. Neither guy really gets finished. Paulo Costa's undefeated, and then you're putting him. I mean, Romero has 2 or 3 losses, but 2 of the losses are against Whitaker. So you can really say he really has a good record too.
Yeah.
But this is the first test that Paulo Costa really has had. I think he's number 8 contender, and Romero's number 1.
Is he really number 8?
Yeah. So that's
a huge jump for the UFC to do. We normally don't see jumps from 8 to 1. Normally they let top 5 fight number 1 contenders. And
I really think whoever wins this fight is going to be fighting Israel Adesanya or Robert Whitaker for the title next, because Israel Adesanya and Robert Whitaker are fighting at UFC 243. So I really think this is a number 1 contender for that title match. I mean, there's nobody else. Nobody else has beat Romero except for Robert Whitaker. He's cleaned out the division. If he beats Paulo Costa, then I just feel like you got to give him another chance against Whitaker. Yeah. Because he had literally cleaned out the division.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely think he deserves another shot. I mean, last time there was with his last fight with Whitaker, there was the issue with him cutting enough weight. And I mean, we remember seeing him at weigh-ins, and he was overweight. And so what'd they give him, an hour to try to cut?
Yeah.
I think it was an hour, and said, okay, because he was by 0.1 of a pound over, and they said, well, if you can cut that in an hour, like we'll we'll let this fight go on as
They
normal.
supposedly cut him off like 5 minutes before they were supposed to.
Yeah.
And he was supposedly, they wouldn't let him weigh in for like a second time like they were supposed to. So he supposedly, but I mean, I think he's good now. He, when he took those fights, he kind of took them not on short notice, but not like he usually does.
A good amount of notice to safely cut that much weight. Yeah. And so he was just weak when he tried cutting that much in that little bit of time. So, I mean, some people could definitely have a educated speculation that definitely was a huge factor into him losing the fight. So, and Romero and Costa, who do you really see coming out on top of this?
I'm gonna go with Romero because I love you.
I love you.
Because I love you, yeah, Mike.
I love you, Luke.
But I ain't gonna give my prediction yet because we'll do that at the end. But I got Romero.
Yeah, I mean I've got Romero as well. And that's another personal. Wow, I mean, and ignoring analytics, I'd much rather want to see Romero come out on top. But you said a lot of people say they believe these guys are on steroids, but Romero, crazy enough, was taking consuming tainted supplements, so like whey protein that was tainted with illegal sports enhancement, and he was actually able to prove that he was unaware of this tainted supplement. Oh yeah, he got a lot of money for that lawsuit, and so this was one of those times when it's not really his fault. Then it's not one of those times like John Jones when Jones got caught taking roids. That was a huge controversy because even people were saying that Jones should have been suspended for a while because he was purposely taking roids. And then roids just aren't like marijuana. You don't just do it and then when it's over, it's over. Roids have this lasting effect. And so it gave him a permanent advantage over his opponents. And so that's why people thought Jones should have had a more discipline. Yeah. Maybe, a long suspension and not fought for a couple of years, to kind of get it out of his system. Because he even was drug tested, like, I think before his last fight, and the roids were still in his system. But he was actually able to prove he wasn't taking roids. Yeah. But with most drugs, they get stored in your muscle and your fat. And so when you were taking a lot of it, it will show up in your system for months and months on end.
It was supposedly a picogram.
A picogram?
That wasn't enough to provide him any advantages, but just the fact that it's in there.
Yeah, and I mean, he knew what he was doing. And so that's the difference between Romero and him is... Romero is another stout guy. I don't think anything's came out if Costa has done any illegal sports enhancement. But Romero, he should not have been suspended because it was a unknown tainted supplement. So, and he some people gave him a bad name for that, but it was one of those things where he just did not know. So, but we'll talk about accurate fight predictions here later, but Pettis and Diaz, I know you're so excited for this.
Let's go.
Yeah, for those of you who do not know, Nate Diaz is Marcus's like all-time favorite fighter, and I mean he hasn't even fought in 3 years, and you've still been on this guy. So you're not a bandwagon for him.
Yeah, so Diaz. Conor McGregor versus Diaz 2 was actually the first fight I ever saw in UFC, and that's what got me hooked on it. I respect how real he is. He comes out there and he can do a lot of things. He trying to think of the word for it. Like a demolition man, you know what I'm saying? He can
Oh yeah,
stand up with you, jiu-jitsu.
he can do it all.
He can do it all, and I just respect his training and all that kinds of stuff that goes into it.
Yeah, he's a man of many trades for fighting in the octagon.
But I'm very excited about this fight. To co-main event this great card. Pettis is a hard fight to come back to, though. Pettis is no joke. He's coming off a knockout, Superman punch to Wonder Boy. I mean, Woodley couldn't even knock out Wonder Boy. And then Anthony Pettis, that used to fight at 145, comes up to 170 and knocks out a real 170-pound fighter.
Yeah.
Like, Pettis ain't no joke.
Oh, yeah.
But what's interesting is Pettis has been he changed up his training a little bit for this fight. He's been training like Diaz. So if y'all don't know, Diaz, he does all these triathlons and stuff. He's a triathlete. Pettis has been swimming, running, and biking during this training camp, and I think he knows he's in for a war. I don't think neither one of these guys are just gonna get finished. I'm like by knockout.
See it go in the distance.
I don't know if it's gonna go the distance, but not either one of these guys is gonna get knocked out. If they get finished, it's gonna be by submission.
Submission or TKO.
Well, TKO is like a technical knockout when the ref does it.
Yeah, the ref called, but not a legitimate knockout though.
Yeah, neither one of these guys, I don't think they've been knocked out a lot, or if even. But I'm very excited for this fight. There's some bad blood too. Like back in the day when they both came over from WEC, Anthony Pettis, the UFC kind of jumped on him. They started putting him on Wheaties box and stuff, and they just released a promo yesterday. I mean, you were talking about it earlier, and Diaz, didn't like that Pettis was getting all this attention when they both came over. They were both well recognized when they first came over to UFC, and he didn't like that Pettis was on the Wheaties box and stuff, and Diaz felt like he was doing some good stuff at that time too, and he should have been on there, or they should have been giving him a push, a good push. Yeah. So this fight has been years in the making. There's a lot of bad blood. Anthony Pettis defeated Gilbert Melendez back in the day, which is Diaz's really good buddy and training partner. So a lot of bad blood. This is going to be a really good fight.
Yeah. I mean, we're really excited. And that's just talking about the history and the analytics, but it's just a very exciting fight.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I'm excited because of you. I mean, you were so stoked on Diaz.
Oh yeah.
And three years off. But I mean, do you emotionally, ignoring emotions, do you think Diaz could be a victim of ring rust in the while he's fighting?
I do believe in ring rust. I believe in rust in any sport. I believe, if you don't shoot a basketball for a month, you're not going to get out there and be a good basketball player. So any sport. But I don't believe ring rust will be a problem for Diaz because he trains with professional boxers. Through these 3 years, he's been training with professional boxers like Andre Ward. A lot of these big boxers he trained with. He still runs these triathlons, so he's in shape. I mean, a lot of people, I follow him on Instagram. He's been staying in shape these past 3 years. I think he's been wanting to fight. I don't think that it's his choice. It's not really his decision that he's just now getting to fight.
Yeah.
I think if the proper fights were offered, he would have took them.
Yeah. There's a lot of speculation on why he hasn't fought in 3 years. Some people have said that that Dana White's not offering fights, and some people have said that Diaz isn't accepting fights that Dana White's offered. We obviously aren't there, so we don't know which situation is true. But Diaz in the last few years has definitely had some offers. McGregor offered again for over some tweets. I believe.
It wasn't an official.
Yeah,
offer
not an official offer, but like McGregor was like, "Yo, let's anytime, anywhere." Then I remember Guida was making a video riding a bike, calling Diaz out, like, "Yo, Diaz, let's."
The thing about Guida though, like even though he beat Diaz back in the day by decision, we like Guida, but he's not a big name. Like they couldn't put Guida versus Diaz on a co-main event of a pay-per-view.
No, I mean Guida, like you said, we like him. We've always liked him, but he just isn't like the biggest name. Maybe, you could not put Diaz and Guida on a pay-per-view, but you probably could have done them on like a nice fight night with another like stacked card.
But Diaz ain't going to perform on a fight night. He wants that money.
Yeah, Diaz wants the pay-per-view. So, but then, I mean, we don't know why Diaz has been off for so long, but we're excited to see him back, and we really hope ring rust is not something he's susceptible to. But now DC and Stipe.
Oh yeah, this is gonna be a great one.
I'm very excited for this one. Me and Marcus, we actually said we're gonna bet $5 on this.
Yep.
So so that is it's official, and this is just an exciting fight because it's round 2 for these guys.
Yeah, bad blood this time. That first fight, they were shaking hands. They respected each other a lot. I'm sure that respect is still there. There's a little bad blood here. Stipe Miocic came out after DC finished him in the first round. DC finished him in the first round by knockout, and then afterwards Stipe Miocic a couple of months after stated on Twitter that he would beat DC 9 times out of 10. I just don't get how somebody could say that after being finished in the first round.
Yeah, so it doesn't really seem accurate. And if DC lost his first fight, Stipe lost his first fight to DC, so if they fought 9 more times, I do not see Stipe winning every 9 times. Now, I could see this totally going different. Like you said, there's bad blood. Stipe's got a little more of a bite to him right now. So I could see him just coming out very focused, very calm, but ready to attack. And Stipe, if that's his mindset and that's how he's going to take this fight, I think he's going to be a dangerous opponent for DC.
Yeah. And I think this is a very motivated Stipe Miocic, I believe. And it's a very motivated DC. DC sees how motivated Stipe is. They're both coming to this fight. I feel like they're both approaching this as a must-win. That everything's on the line. I feel like they both have a lot riding into this fight.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. So it's round 2. We already know if Stipe wins, we'll eventually get a third fight between them. The UFC is very big into finishing out the third fight. If 2 fighters have fought and one fighter won once, the next fighter won the next fight. The UFC is pretty good about completing that and doing a third fight just for fans' sake of argument. And the fighters always like it because it's bragging rights. So it's definitely going to be a great fight. If Stipe wins, we will more than likely see the third fight. But now, if whoever wins, do you see either fighter here fighting Jones? And if so, do you think Jones will go up to heavyweight?
A lot of people want to see DC versus John Jones 3. Dana White has stated that he wants to make that fight at heavyweight. If DC can win, I would like to see that fight. I believe there's nobody in the UFC that has gotten close to beating John Jones except Daniel Cormier. And I believe that if Stipe won, that if John Jones, clears out that lightweight division a little bit, light heavyweight division, then that's a good fight to make for him to come up there. He could possibly have some success against Stipe Miocic.
Yeah. I think DC and Jones would be a good fight for their third fight between the two. But now, if Stipe comes out and he's a completely different fighter from what we've seen in the past, and he's aggressive, he's motivated, he's attacking, he's not just kind of dodging. If he fights like that with DC and does extremely well, and he continues that same fighting style with Jones, I could see that being a very good fight because these two guys, they're both tall. They have a long reach and they're both great fighters. But with how Stipe has fought in the past, it's not going to compare to Jones's fighting style right now. So if we see a completely different Stipe, then I think him and Jones would be a great fight.
Oh yeah.
So, but I'm excited. So I'm going for Stipe in our bet, and you got DC.
Yep. But let's get right into it. So for these 3 main fights on UFC 241, I want to get a prediction out of you and me, a prediction and how that person will win. So let's start with Romero versus Paulo Costa. Who do you see winning, and how do you see this getting finished?
Are we speaking emotionally or analytically?
Either one.
Either one.
You don't have to. Whoever you
just
as a person.
How you actually see it ending. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, these two. This is really a tough one to call. I'd say I would love to see Romero win. What I realistically feel like is going to happen is I feel like it's going to go the distance, and it's going to go down to decision. I could see it being a split decision because we have 2 good fighters here, and I could realistically predict that it's going to go the distance, be a split decision, and Romero's going to come out on top.
I agree with you. That's definitely how I just think both of these guys. I don't think they can be finished. I don't think they're gonna finish each other. They'll hit each other with some hard shots. It's gonna be a war. But at the end of the day, I think Romero gets the win by decision.
Yeah. Now Pettis and Diaz.
Oh man, you know who I'm going for.
Oh,
their
without a
analytics out. I don't care who he's facing. He could face Ngannou. I'm going for Diaz. Yeah, I got Diaz winning this fight. Really, it's a tough fight to come back for, but I got Diaz, and I think he will win this fight by a 2nd round submission. I think he's just gonna outbox Pettis so bad.
You think he's gonna submit him?
Yeah, I think Pettis is gonna get frustrated mid-2nd round. He's gonna get frustrated because he just keeps getting pieced up on the feet. I think Pettis is gonna go for a takedown. I think he's gonna get submitted. I can't tell you if Diaz will submit him off his back, a rear naked choke, or but I do feel like Diaz is going to win this by submission.
Yeah. Well, I agree. I think Diaz will win. And I know you think this probably won't happen, but I could see Diaz winning by TKO. I think I have to agree. I think Pettis is going to get a little angry, get a little sloppy, and then the sloppy fighters get tired quick, and then they make bad mistakes. And I could see Diaz hitting him with a hard right, knocking him down and dazing him, and just getting on top and going at it. Because, I mean, Diaz, he's trying to make a statement. It's been 3 years off, and he's going to try to make a statement that says, I've been 3 years off, but I'm not out. I'm not out from fighting, so I'm not going to be a bad fighter. And he's going to come out, and he's going to try to make a statement that says, I'm ready for McGregor now.
Yeah.
So I think this is going to be a different Diaz than what we've seen in the past.
Oh, I hope so.
Now DC and Stipe.
I also have. I'm going with DC, obviously, but I also have DC winning by submission. I'm gonna say a 3rd round submission, or no, this is 5 rounds.
Is it 5 rounds?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with a 4th round submission. Maybe even an armbar or something like that. But I feel like there's going to be a lot of wrestling in this. I feel like DC's going to have to utilize his wrestling. So I'm going DC by submission in the 4th round.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think DC's going to want to wrestle a lot, but I think the new Stipe is not going to be interested in that. I think he is going to say, no, we're combating. We're going hand to hand, and he's going to try his hardest to keep it on his feet, is my prediction. And I could see this being another TKO in like round 4 or even round 3, because DC, love the guy. I love both these guys, but DC, he's getting up there on age, and he's getting up there on the scale. And so when you're at his age, we see that some fighters aren't affected that much, like Romero. But also the difference is DC's health isn't really the best. So, anything DC does, he's carrying a lot more weight with him, and that's going to make him more tired. That's going to wear him down a lot more. And I think for this fight, I could also see Stipe being having a TKO on DC in round 3 or 4. Just because realistically, that's where DC's at. And I mean, he's always going to be a big guy, and that's completely fine. But people who are 42 and extremely overweight do have stamina problems. So,
but that's going to be all for the podcast today, guys.
Yeah, we're going to end it.
Yep. You ready to?
Oh no, I was saying we're ending it now, guys.
Yep.
So
please get out and watch this UFC 241. This is going to be a great card. Y'all don't want to miss this.
It's going to be this Saturday, August 18th. Me and Marcus were actually going to be at Myrtle Beach, so our second show is going to be in front of the beach, in South Carolina. So,
but thank you guys for listening to our first podcast. We're very excited to continue posting more podcasts, and if you like it, please subscribe, share with your other fight friends.
Yeah, and we're excited to continue this. I think we're just gonna have a fun time doing it.
Oh yeah, thanks guys.
Thanks guys.
Type that word. What's that?